Can I? Hare Krishna, my dear friends and well-wishers. Welcome back to the Bond of Love interview series hosted by the ISKCON Vaishnavi Ministry. My name is Mahamaya Devi Dasi. I, along with my family, serve at the ISKCON Portland Temple in Oregon. This wonderful interview series, as you know, is an opportunity for all of us gathered here to hear from Srila Prabhupada's spiritual daughters about their connection to him and their experiences in Krishna consciousness. And today we have the fortune of hearing from none other than Her Grace Mahamaya Devi Dasi. Her Grace Mahamaya Devi Dasi joined in Boston, Massachusetts on Jan 3rd, 1971 at 24 years old. She was initiated at the Brooklyn, New York Temple on July 23rd, 1971. She lived in many different temples over the years, mostly in the US, but also Canada, UK, and Italy. And she lived in India, mostly in Mayapur, from 1975 all the way up till 1977. She was a part-time resident at Mayapur since 1994, and she currently resides in Alachua, Florida, when not in India. So some of her past services include composing, as in typesetting Srila Prabhupada's books, pujari service, Deity sewing, and her current services include proofreading for Back to Godhead magazine, compiling Srila Prabhupada's Disciple Database, and various aspects of deity worship, including fundraising for deities by selling their retired maha-prasadam dresses, backdrops, effulgences, etc. We'll talk a little bit about it towards the end. She was married for 37 years to the late Jnana gamya, an architectural designer, and they have one child named Rasacarya, who's a disciple of His Holiness Radhanatha Swami. He attended the Vrindaban Gurukula and the Mayapur Gurukula, and now he is a professional cinematographer in Hollywood, married to Sachi Sharma, and they have 3 beautiful children together. So without further ado, we'd love to welcome Her Grace Mahamaya Devi Dasi.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Prabhupada.
Of course, thank you so much for taking your time, your precious time, to being with us here today. Maybe we can start off by asking you, how did you decide to participate in being part of this book, A Bond of Love?
Well, it's all about sharing, isn't it? And my experiences were, for a rank and file devotee, was way more than most, just because I spent so much time in India and Mayapur. And I remember sitting in Prabhupada's darshan room and feeling that, and it's just a very small room, and it was just a handful of devotees, and feeling that I have to share these experiences with everyone, because everyone in the movement wanted to be where I was. And I was privileged enough to be in Prabhupada's rooms. And even if he wasn't talking, just to watch him, his movements were so transcendental, everything about him. And I really felt that I had to share, because to us, Prabhupada is the center of the Hare Krishna movement. He did not put himself in the center. He put the chanting of Hare Krishna, he put Krishna in the center. But to his disciples, grand disciples, the whole lineage, he is our everything. Everything is about, for us, it's all because of him. He brought Krishna consciousness. Yeah, so it's about sharing, and I feel privileged to be able to add to the volume Bond of Love. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it's so hard. I'm sure when you talk about Srila Prabhupada, you, like Lord Ananta Shesh, would wish you had more mouths to share about Srila Prabhupada. So the next question I'm going to ask is going to be a hard one, and that's to share a favorite memory of Srila Prabhupada.
Okay, well, it's hard to pin it down to one. I was thinking the moment of initiation, because that was very intense. I mean, I've heard people talk for 10 minutes about that look when Prabhupada looked into your eyes, and but at the same time, I think it's more appropriate for me to share that my favorite was connected with Prabhupada's younger sister, who we called Pishima. Her actual name was Bhavatarini, because she came to Mayapur when Prabhupada came in January of 1976. I had actually met her during Gurpurnim Festival of 75. She also came to the festival at that time, but I didn't have any personal connection with her. But when she came to Mayapur in January of 76, you have to understand, Mayapur community was about 125 devotees, out of which maybe the 25 were Westerners and all the rest were Bengalis, mostly Bangladesh refugees. So there was a communication problem. They didn't speak English. We didn't speak Bengali. So out of the Westerners, it was mostly men. So it came down to there were 6 Western women. And for some reason, it was understood that Pishimo needed an assistant, and it had to be one of the 6 of us. And I thought there'd be a competition. And I was ready to battle it out. But somehow nobody else wanted to do it. So by default, I got to be Pishima's personal servant. And that was an in to Prabhupada in some ways. But the main thing was that she wanted to go to Prabhupada's evening darshan. It was an open darshan. Anybody could go. It was about 6 o'clock, maybe more like 5. Yeah, I had been hesitant to go to darshans just because of my training when I was a new devotee. One of my early temple presidents, he had this line, "We're not meant to gawk at Srila Prabhupada." He used that word gawk, just to like stare at the spiritual master. We're meant to serve. So he, this was Damodar Das in Washington, D.C. I was living in Washington when I got initiated. And therefore, because of his philosophy, we didn't go to New York when Prabhupada arrived in New York. And devotees from all over the East Coast, Prabhupada hadn't been in America in a year and a half. He came in July of 71 to New York. And he just had drilled this into my head that we are meant to serve. So therefore, there was many opportunities I had in India to go to Prabhupada's room for evening darshan. But instead, I would do direct service to Prabhupada, like in Vrindaban, cleaning his upstairs quarters, because after darshan, he would go upstairs or like that. But anyway, when Prabhupada came to Mayapur, Pishima she did not speak English, but she wanted to go to the darshan, and she needed help up the stairs. She couldn't even go alone. She was elderly and had problems walking, especially going upstairs, which I totally relate to now. Because now I'm about her age at the time. And yeah, we went to Prabhupada's rooms and listened to him. It was so many amazing remembrances. I'll just tell one. So madrangas were made of clay, right? They're very breakable. Unforgiving, you drop it on the floor, it is going to break. And so devotees figured out a way to make a fiberglass madranga, right, in Los Angeles. I believe it was Ishan Das. Maybe he was helped with somebody else. But so they made what he called Balaram madrangas. He didn't bring the first madranga to India, but Sudama, who was a Swami at that time, Sudama Maharaj, who was a very accomplished actor, very dramatic, he brought the madranga to the back door of Prabhupada's darshan room. In other words, everybody came through the front door, but he came to the back veranda door and caught everyone's attention, caught Prabhupada's attention, holds up the madranga and drops it on the floor. And everybody was like, gasp, oh my God. I mean, we used to call it Sri Madranga, would pay obeisance to Madranga. Here he is doing this seemingly disrespectful thing, but he had to make the point. It was not breakable. So after everybody got over the shock, he hands him a junket to Srila Prabhupada. Prabhupada plays it a little, hands it back to Sudama and says, Kirtan. And we just had Kirtan the whole rest of that darshan. So that was one story.
Thank you for sharing. Now we know the history of the Balaram Mridangas. Each time we see it, this wonderful pastime comes up. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
talking about like memories, do you have a favorite memory? You shared a favorite memory, but what were your feelings in Srila Prabhupada's presence?
Oh, I was always in awe,
Hmm.
just totally in awe. I mean, even the word charisma doesn't really cover the feeling that I got in Prabhupada's presence. It was just, wow, to see a pure devotee, hear him. I mean, I was just so grateful to Srila Prabhupada. I felt like he, pulled me out of the gutter. I don't think my future was very bright if I hadn't, met Prabhupada's disciples. And yeah, so being with Srila Prabhupada was always exhilarating. Just,
Sure.
yeah, no matter that I was often embarrassed. I did some embarrassing things. Anyway.
And Srila Prabhupada is termed as an acharya, or he is our acharya because he knew how to adjust according to time, place, and circumstances, right? So, anything you'd
Yeah.
like to share on that aspect of Srila Prabhupada?
Oh, yeah, there is a story I don't tell very often, but so out of the 6 ladies who were living in Mayapur, 2 ladies from the United Kingdom, Swati and Kamaduk, were into following the local culture of when ladies were, as we say, off the altar. We all know what that means, right? When we're off the altar, the custom locally was to not go to the temple. It was the local people kind of did an extreme thing where they wouldn't bathe for 3 days. They wouldn't even stay in their own house. So many restrictions. And these 2 ladies wanted the rest of us ladies to follow that basic example of not going to the temple. And we rebelled. And so I wrote a letter, which I signed the Matajis of Mayapur. I knew that it was better in a group, you know. And so, brief letter, just asking Srila Prabhupada what the, what he would prefer us to do during those days. I really did not want to stop going to the temple. And I think I might have even said, like, should we wear a silk sari? What should we do? And I gave the letter to Prabhupada's servant, who was Hari Sori at that time. Well, the interesting thing is that he came back a few day or 2 later and just gave me the basic message. Prabhupada said that you can go to the temple, but you shouldn't do deity worship. Okay. But many, many years later, either I read it in his book or maybe I heard him explain that when he gave the letter to Srila Prabhupada, he was very upset, like seemingly angry. And he called in Tamal Krishna Maharaj, I think, who was his secretary, and had Hari Sari read the letter to him and saying, why is a woman writing this and giving this to a brahmachari, meaning Hari Sari? Hari Sari was actually a grihasta. And he wore white dhoti, but his wife wasn't there. So that's when it came to light that he explained to Srila Prabhupada that actually he was married. That was one point that became revealed. But when Tamal Krishna Maharaj read the letter, he said something like, well, it's very politely written and it's, signed the Matajis of Mayapur. Like it wasn't inappropriate. And immediately, Prabhupada, anger was gone. like I see that in my life, when I get angry, it's like all consuming for the moment. But his emotions were under control. It was not uh, artificial, or I don't know. Yeah, he had control of his senses. That's the point. Did I answer the question?
Yeah, no, that's amazing. The point you made about anger, because there are two types of angers, right? Spiritual anger and material anger. And they
Yes,
say that how you can distinguish between both of them is that spiritual anger doesn't consume you, right?
exactly.
And you can easily forgive the other person. And yeah,
Yes. Yeah.
that makes
Not a
perfect sense.
fact.
No, thank you so much for sharing. And you were mentioning, like, as I was reading your bio, it was said I mentioned that some of your services included composing Srila Prabhupada's book, and maybe that's how he engaged you in devotional service. Do you want to shed some light on that?
Yeah. When I joined, about a week after I joined, they discovered I knew how to type. And I was first the temple president's secretary, but very, very quickly, because ISKCON Press, before BBT, it was called, our publishing arm was called ISKCON Press. And we actually had a, a printer in the Boston temple. And yeah, I got involved with composing Prabhupada's books. And to me, that's still, I mean, I never was a book distributor, but I helped produce the book. So at that time, first of all, we were doing a Back to Godhead every month. Now it's bi-monthly. So Back to Godhead every month. And then we were working on third and fourth cantos of Srimad Bhagavatam, and simultaneously we were working on Adi Leela. I particularly remember the seventh chapter of Adi Leela. Actually, we started with the second volume. That's why I think the first volume of Adi Leela is so big. It's really a huge book because we didn't do that first. I can't really explain. It wasn't my decision or anything, but the seventh chapter, which I believe is called Lord Chaitanya and Five Features, that chapter is so amazing. And when you would, knowing I was like the first person to read what I'm typesetting, I mean, there's other typesetters too. We were all in the same mood of like, we want to do this as fast as possible. We get to read more. And like, there was these amazing pastimes, all about the storehouse of love of God and how Lord Chaitanya broke it open and distributed the contents. And the more he distributed, the more there was. And, I mean, it was just amazing. And of course, we'd go and tell other devotees about what we had read and so on. It was just that stood out in my mind. Also, like Madhya Leela Volume 1, the pastimes of Madhavendra Puri, I remember it struck me too. Yeah, it was so satisfying to be part of the team to produce Prabhupada's books. We did make a lot of mistakes, however. And so the whole controversy about Prabhupada's books, I see it in a different light than other people, I think. Like, I don't want my mistakes duplicated forever, that kind of view. Also, I come from a publishing background. I don't think I had shared that, but yeah, my father started his own publishing company. He specialized in how-to books. And my parents both were editors. And, I was at any vacation, I would go into New York City. We lived in a suburb, and I'd go into the city to my father's office and stuff envelopes or help proofread. I started proofreading at 8 years old.
Sure.
um, and yeah, so it was very natural for me to be around publishing. Yeah, it's in my blood. I feel like it's in my blood. And that's why I was
And
also able to write my book, my Memories of Prabhupada, that I self-published.
sure.
Yeah.
Would you like to share something about that? Its title? Yeah.
Yeah, Srila Prabhupada is coming is the name. That's what we always said. I mean, yeah. When we knew that Prabhupada was coming to our temple, it was wow. We were so exuberant. We were young and, you know, I just remember those early days, like running from one service to another,
Mhm.
and feet hardly touching the ground, and dancing like crazy at every kirtan, and all of that I can't do anymore. But yeah, like I said, I'm a rank and file devotee, but I did see Srila Prabhupada. I got to do a lot of little services. I even got to cook preparations for Prabhupada. I never cooked a whole meal, but we would cook sweet rice and sandesh that would offer to Radha, and then would save it. And Prabhupada, especially the sandesh, Prabhupada would eat it in the early mornings when he was writing his books, and he sometimes needed a little pick me up, and that was his preferred choice, to eat sandesh. And I have a whole story about how he liked my sandesh. That's the whole. I mean, I could tell all details, but that's the bottom line. Of course, I
Right.
didn't. I didn't learn. I learned how to cook from other devotees in Mayapur. How to cook sandesh, so, and other things.
Thank you. Now, when I think of pick me ups, we'll think of Srila Prabhupada eating sandesh, or when you look at sandesh, we'll think of Srila Prabhupada and how he used to honor that early in the morning. Thank you for sharing.
I wish I
Um,
was still cooking it. People have asked me for the recipe. I should try to write it down. It's a technique.
Please. Okay.
Oh,
Would you like to share it here? I'm sure there are many devotees who will benefit.
okay. Okay. Well, first of all, we'd curdle our milk. Now, we were getting fresh milk from the cows in Mayapur. So in the Western countries, that's not always the case. But so we'd curdle the milk with, I don't think we used lemon because it would leave a certain flavor. It was with citric acid.
Hmm.
And then would hang the curds in a cloth and let the extra whey drip out. I can't remember at this point whether we would wash so that all the whey would come out. But in any case, the technique was to shape the curd in a square, like a flattish square, and then cut it into quarters. Then you'd remove one quarter and fill that quarter with sugar.
Hmm.
So that's how we'd measure the sugar, by filling that quarter. Then we'd mix the sugar into the curd in a wok, and on a low flame, slowly cook the curd and sugar. Basically, you're just trying um, to dry out the wetness, because as soon as the sugar melts, it's wet. The whole thing is wet. So then you want to very slowly and carefully dry it out. And the test for when it was done was, with a flat spatula, you'd push the curd up on the side of the wok. And if it started breaking apart as you push it up, it would like separate. Then that was a sign that it was sufficiently cooked. It really doesn't take much cooking. Yeah, it doesn't take much cooking. If you cook it too much, it's not good. So that's the whole method. Okay. I forgot an important step. Very important step. Before you put the sugar in, when the curd is, more or less dry, would take enough of the curd to make like one round sweet ball, and we would knead it. Um, we would knead it on well, it was a countertop, but it happened to be marble countertop, which is probably the best if you have it. And we'd spread it out, so it's like a 2 foot by 2 foot area, just the amount of one sweet ball. So it's like so spread out. You're using your fingers and your palms to like knead it to the point that it could spread out on a huge area. So it's absolutely no lumps. Now I know these days people probably throw it in a food processor or a blender, but I think the bhakti was part of it. It took time and effort, but yeah, we'll go through the whole bit of curd, just a little bit at a time, and like I say, spreading it out just so smooth. And then once it's all spread out, then you scoop it up with a flat spatula, a metal spatula, and then do the next part. Yeah. So that's how you knead the curd, then add the sugar and cook it, and then roll it into balls.
Thank
Sometimes
you.
we would add flavoring.
Okay.
That is allowed.
I'm sure devotees will be encouraged now to make this and offer to Srila Prabhupada my parents' appearance day on your behalf. So thank you.
Hope that's detailed enough that people can follow it.
Srila Prabhupada, him providing protection. I know you have this wonderful pastime that you'd like to share. Maybe you want to touch upon that.
About protection. I remember.
Hyderabad farm.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So during the Gurpurnam festival of 1975 was a little bit different than most. That in between the Mayapur festival and the Vrindaban festival, about 150 of us, not everybody, there's about 400 at the festival, but 150 of us went to Hyderabad. We took the train. Srila Prabhupada flew down there, and there was a program. Well, there was a temple in the city of Hyderabad. Very big, beautiful deities. I think their name is Radhanatha Swami. But they were just bought some land that they were just beginning to develop as a farm. And so we fed, like, word got out that we were going to feed everybody in the area. And people came just pouring in for prasadam. We probably had a kirtan, probably Prabhupada spoke. I can't remember those kind of details. What I remember is that Palika Devi Dasi and some other ladies had been to the Hyderabad farm before and knew where there was a nice place to bathe, like a pond. And she convinced a bunch of us, maybe 15 of us ladies, to go with her. And, it was hot and, we wanted to go. She didn't force us or anything. But when we came back, the buses that had brought us out there had left without us. Okay, but Prabhupada was still there. And an arrangement had been made that there was a big truck that carried all the big woks and all the cooking facilities for cooking for all those people. We could ride on that truck, an open truck, back to the city of Hyderabad. So that had been arranged, but we're standing around waiting for the truck to leave. And Prabhupada came out of his room and saw us. Now, this was like the first time that myself and all the other ladies had ever seen Prabhupada outside of, a Bhagavatam class, greeting him at the airport, or seeing him go on a morning walk or back from a morning walk. And he came up and was asking us what was the situation, why were we still there. And so it was just so touching that he was concerned, like we were his granddaughters, kind of. He was more or less our grandparents' age. And yeah, he was so caring and considerate. That was very touching. I can't hear you, Premarupa. No, I'm not hearing you. Can you hear me? I don't know why I'm not hearing her.
She's pressing.
Do I touch? Hare Krishna.
Maybe keep talking because other people might be able to hear you.
Oh. No. Still can't hear you. Are you able to hear me? You can hear me. I can't hear you though.
Just tell another story.
Should I just go and tell another story?
No.
Oh, there you go. Okay.
Perfect. Yeah.
We're back.
Yeah. Sorry about that. Yeah. No, that's such a beautiful pastime. And I was just thinking of how he had told, I'm thinking who was a Malti Prabhu, like how, that they would give their lives for me and I would give mine to them, right? That's how much
Yes.
he protected you.
Oh,
and
yeah.
you were his girls, and that love.
Yes.
And
Absolutely.
for him, caring for the Vaishnavis was so important, and he stressed that to so many people, right?
Yes.
He led by example, and that's why he's an acharya. And thank you so much for sharing that. And
Sure.
is there anything in particular you want to share with the next generation of devotees in terms of like developing relationship with Srila Prabhupada?
Oh, yeah. Well, I feel so blessed having had, like I say, more association than if I had just stayed in America and just kept on, serving here. It would be, every little thing would have been very important. But I went to India and saw him so much, every Bhagavatam class for like months at a time and things like that. And so I love to share, like every Vyasa Puja or Prabhupada's disappearance day. I just tell memories of Srila Prabhupada because that's just the way I like to share. Now, I really know that Prabhupada felt his Vani, his association of following his instructions, was way more important than his Vapu. Of course, his Vapu was extraordinary, and I'm so grateful I got to have his darshan. I always make the distinction because the words are similar, Vani and Vapu. That the Vapu, the P in Vapu means person. That's how I remember the distinction. Yeah, so it was just important that, we got his darshan, and I love to share it. And at the same time, we are all his disciples. Disciple, grand disciple, great grand disciple. We're all his disciples. And if anybody thinks that they don't have a relationship with Prabhupada, like start it now, today, because it's there. And I once met some devotees of Ramanuja Acharya who lived like 1,000 years ago, or many, many hundreds of years ago. And when I asked whose disciple are you, who's your guru, the answer was Ramanujacharya. And I took initiation from so-and-so. And I feel like that is where our movement should be. Prabhupada should be in the center. Everybody should feel a connection. And it's all about Prabhupada to me. And we're all here because of Srila Prabhupada. I mean, I can't even imagine a world without Srila Prabhupada. Just so grateful to him.
Thank you so much for sharing.
Yeah.
Your book, Srila Prabhupada, is coming. Do you have like a favorite pastime from the book that you'd like to share?
Well, I already shared some of them, but well, okay. Well, okay, I have the book here. Should I show it?
Yes, please.
So at the time, I really didn't have any photos of myself with Srila Prabhupada. And so this was a photo from a devotee's photo album. And it was on that old type photographic paper that had raised dots all over it, which distorted the picture. So had to do a lot of work to clean that up. Years later, after this book was published, this is not a new book, but then again, the pastimes are not out of date. But years later, I did get a photograph of Srila Prabhupada. There's many photographs of Prabhupada ringing the bell in the Mayapur temple. So this temple is a long, narrow, rectangular shape with Radhamata at one end and Prabhupada's Vyasasana at the other end. And you could walk behind the altar and behind the Vyasasana. So we'd do this grand walk with Srila Prabhupada, and the bell, there was two bells, one on either side of the altar, and he would stop, ring the bell, let go of the rope, and someone would catch it and keep on ringing. And so there's a photograph of Prabhupada ringing the bell, and it's like, you know, group of male devotees all around him, and over to one side, I'm standing there.
Yeah.
And yeah, I look pretty young. So that was ecstatic. Okay, let me tell one more about Mayapur. So there was two little Western boys in Mayapur at one particular time when Prabhupada was there, probably 76. I get 76, 77 mixed up because Prabhupada came both years for 2 months. But it must have been 76 because Prabhupada was quite sick in 77. So these three-year-old boys. Okay, so what happened was that when Srila Prabhupada arrived in Mayapur, after we greeted him at the gate, that was so ecstatic, the front gate of Mayapur. It was actually inaugurated when Prabhupada arrived in 76. So there was like a big ribbon. They handed him a big, you know, scissors to cut it. And I remember that kirtan was amazing because we didn't know when Prabhupada was going to get there. No cell phones, we didn't even really have phones. A phone call would consist of somebody yelling in the phone, "I can't hear you." You know, that was the phone calls. So we were outside for chanting probably for 2 hours before Prabhupada arrived. And I was really feeling like, you know, I wasn't his body. Like that was gone. We were just waiting for Prabhupada and all people from all different countries. I mean, it was just a small, because in January of 76, it was just the local devotees. Really. But anyway, Prabhupada goes into the temple, gave a wonderful talk where he talked about how this is the real United Nations.
Mm.
I remember that point. Yeah, very much. This is the real United Nations. And then probably Jnana Prabhu, who was head pujari, he brings a tray with all the Mangal Arti sweets and offers them to Prabhupada. So Prabhupada popped one or part of one in his mouth, and then everybody's gathering around Prabhupada, and he distributes them to whoever was nearby. So then the next day, before Prabhupada got off the Vyasasana after Guru Puja, they brought the tray of Mangal Arti sweets. And that became the routine for the next 2 months. So Prabhupada would distribute the maha, he would break the pieces apart so that it would spread further. It would start with the Gurukula boys. I don't remember how many boys there were, but there must have been, 30, 40 boys. And then if there was still some left, he would hand them out to the men. And then if on occasion, not every day, but mostly, Prabhupada would have enough for the 6 of us women to get some too. Now, there was a lot of Bengali ladies. There must have been 10 or 15 Bengali ladies. But they were in the kitchen at that particular time. They weren't very fixed on chanting japa. If you gave them japa time, japa beads, they would just talk to each other. So Prabhupada said their japa was kitchen seva. There was 2 ladies who could chant japa, but anyway, Prabhupada initiated them all, by the way. All of the ladies got initiated. First initiation. He only gave second initiation to those who actually chanted the rounds. But anyways, so when Prabhupada would actually hand us this sweet, he wouldn't just drop it into your hand. He would push it into your palm.
Mm.
That was really ecstatic. Yeah. There was many special things that happened. One more thing about the temple room and Prabhupada's morning program. He would leave his shoes at the door, at one of the doors, not the door that we would go in, but the door near to his quarters, upstairs in the Lotus building. The temple was in the Lotus building, the ground floor of the Lotus. So he was upstairs. So we'd usually sprinkle flower petals on his shoes. Now you have to understand that it was a very, like I said, so few devotees. We would make the flower garlands in the morning. I guess they still do actually, but it's a large group of ladies who make the flower garlands. But I think we would pick and make the flower garlands in the morning. So there was 2 or 3 young teenage girls, like 12, 13, 14 years old, and they would help make Prabhupada's garland, make this huge, huge flower garland. And one day they let us in on this trick that they were going to play on Srila Prabhupada. And they just told us to be there when Prabhupada came out of the temple and put on his shoes. So we were. We looked to see what was going on. And I noticed that instead of flower petals sprinkled on the toes of his shoes, they had made small garlands and tied them to the tip of his toes, the shoes, the toe of the shoe. So when Prabhupada came out, he noticed that the flowers weren't dispersing, and he looked down at his foot, shook his foot, shook his head, looked at the other foot, shook that, and then he was laughing. We were all laughing so hard. That was really fun.
Yeah. Very, very beautiful pastime. And I could visually, see it early. Yeah, it was so nice. Thank you so much. Talking about like prasad and like maha and so forth. I know you do this wonderful service at the Alachua temple. Would you like to share something about that? Of
Sure.
selling the,
Yeah. Well, we have a group called the Radharani Club, and we actually sponsor 2 new outfits a year, including effulgences, backdrops, jewelry. We have 3 altars, 3 sets of big deities and small deities, and we have had the deities for so long that now some of the outfits have gotten old. Not necessarily worn out, but they're old. So we've been retiring outfits. And I'm involved with putting pictures of these outfits and the backdrops and effulgences online on the Radharani Club website. Oh, you have on the screen. And we're offering them as part of our fundraiser.
Sure.
Actually, not only do we make new outfits, 2 new outfits. Okay, they get more than 2 new outfits, but the Radharani Club sponsors 2 of them. And we also take care of the pujari room, like buy new towels and washcloths. And at one point we used to hang all the outfits on hangers, which is maybe some temples still do that. I don't know, some temples still do that. And it's not as good for the outfits. It hurts the outfits. Better to put them in a box or in a drawer. So we put all our outfits in plastic boxes with tight lids, and it's definitely better for the outfit. So that was a huge expense. And so it's all coming from these donations for the Deity Maha. And we're hoping that, we have Krishna Balaram deities, because our temple is New Raman Reti, and it's similar to Vrindaban, but Krishna Balaram are not in the center because they're they're not very big, but they're bigger than our Radhesham deities. And so just to not overpower the altar, they're on the, as we're looking at the altar, they're on the right side, Radhesham in the middle. I'm just saying that most people don't have Krishna Balaram deities, so we have particularly a lot of their outfits, but they could be used for Gaurni Thai. Just saying. It would have to obviously make new blouses, but that's not the end of the world. Yeah, I'm hoping people can be creative and see that there's a way to dovetail their outfits. We have a lot of backdrops, and they're beautiful backdrops. And just recently, we marked them half price just to make it easier for devotees to get them. And yeah, hoping people take advantage of this opportunity.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I
it's really
think
nice. It's just nice doing business for Krishna. You know?
very nice. Talking about deities, maybe we can end with like a burning question. Devotees who have read your renderation or your realization in a bond of love book would be Srila Prabhupada told you, you asked Srila Prabhupada, can we have our own deities?
Right.
And Srila Prabhupada said, no, temple deities are your deities. So after all these years, do you have deities?
Yes. I still feel that instruction. I just feel it so deeply that I have deities, but I feel like I ignore them mostly because I do want to serve the deities in the temple. And yeah, I realized, okay, at the time I was single, and it was a time and circumstance story because Prabhupada told grihastas to make their homes a temple, right? So there's nothing wrong at all. In fact, we should all have deities in our homes, like, of course. And that instruction was specifically, yeah. I wanted to ask it in the first person. I wanted to say, "Can I have my own deities?" But I couldn't say it. I just couldn't. He had given deities, or a deity, to a god sister who was single, and then another god sister had Jagannath deities, and he had told her, make Jagannath your husband, Balaram your son, and Subhadra your daughter.
Haribol.
Yeah, that's a god sister named Chintamani Dasi. The last I know lives in Detroit. And yeah, so I thought that was so special that he said, made those arrangements for those ladies. But I didn't have the confidence, I guess, to ask him to have my own deity. So yeah.
But you're serving the deities there so wonderfully. So thank you so much. And again, thank you so much for taking your time and sharing these beautiful, wonderful pastimes.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Everybody listening, if you want a copy of a Bond of Love book, please check out Amazon, and also for Mahamaya Devi Prabhu's book. Also, again, it's available on Amazon, or also you can reach out to her directly via her email ID, and she can have it shipped to you.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thanks for watching.
Hare Krishna.